In the world of animation, there are many great animated films, but there are only a few that have been both influential and are considered one of the greatest animated films of all time. Akira is one of these animated films. Why is it so influential? What makes it so great? Well, sit right back and we'll explore that. And welcome everyone to the History of Animation Akira. This story starts in 1954, where a boy named Katsuhiro Otomo was born in Tone, Japan. As a kid, Otomo was extremely fascinated by movies, and he would often travel 3 hours by train just to watch them. His love for movies would lead him to want to tell stories of his own, and over time, he decided to tell his stories through the medium of comics, or as it's known in Japan, manga. In 1973, after graduating high school, Otomo moved to Tokyo, hoping to become a manga artist. It didn't take him long to get into the business, and in October of 1973, Otomo published his first work, called Gun Report. He would go on to work on several projects over the years, but in 1979, he worked on an unfinished manga called Fireball, which featured themes such as psychic powers, and a future Japan as a post-nuclear totalitarian state, which he would further explore on future projects. You see, Otomo grew bored with Fireball, so he gave up on that work, but he liked a lot of the ideas he had for the story, so he took the elements he liked and came up with his next work, called Domu, in which a psychic terrorizes and murders tenants in an old apartment complex until another psychic moves in and confronts him. Domu was Otomo's first big mainstream success, winning several awards and selling over 500,000 copies in Japan alone. Domu was serialized from 1980 to 1981, and after it was completed, Otomo started working on one of his most renowned work to this day, the manga Akira. The Akira manga was serialized in the Japanese anthology magazine called Young Magazine, running from 1982 until its completion in 1990. It totaled over 2,000 pages of art and was collected into 6 volumes. Akira is a cyberpunk action manga that tells the story of Tetsuo and Kaneda, 2 teens living in Neo-Tokyo, built over the ruins of Old Tokyo after it was destroyed from a mysterious blast which started World War III. Tetsuo starts to develop psychic powers, causing a mysterious organization to go after him. That's just the basic premise for the first volume. There's a lot more to the story, lots of twists and turns. It's really great and I highly recommend you checking it out. When the manga first came out, it was greatly received and became a big hit, earning several awards during and after its release. The manga would go on to become so popular that it was translated and released in several countries, including the US, where in 1988, Epic Comics, an imprint of Marvel, released a color version of it. Most manga is normally released in black and white print. During its run, the manga became so popular that Otomo was eventually contacted to turn the manga into an animated film. He never really planned on adapting the series outside the manga, but being a fan of film, he was intrigued by the offer, and eventually would agree to it when it was agreed to give him full creative control of the project. You see, Otomo had previously worked as a character designer for the anime Armageddon, and after that not so good experience, he insisted on having full control. This was a big deal. You see, companies don't normally give anyone full creative control, since they like to have a say on what they are investing their money in, but the only way Otomo was going to allow the film to happen was if he had full creative control, so they gave it to him, which was something I'm sure the producers of the film regretted at the start of the project, because in order to realize Otomo's vision for the film, they were going to need a lot of money, 1.1 billion yen, or $10 million to be exact, making it the most expensive Japanese animated film at that time. In order to fund the movie, several Japanese entertainment companies had to partner up in order to raise the money for the project. The partner-up companies were given the name the Akira Committee and was made up of Kodansha, Manichi Broadcasting System, Bandai, Hokuto, Toho, Laserdisc Corporation, Sumitomo Corporation, and Tokyo Movie Shinsha. I know what you're thinking. Why did it cost so much? Well, you see, at the time, most animation would cut production costs by using limited animation, which was reusing frames and only having certain things move on them, like someone talking but their face stays still and their mouth shows movement but isn't properly synced to what they're saying. This would save animation studios a lot of money, but it often made the animation look cheap and not fluid at all. And Otomo wasn't having any of that. He wanted the best looking animation, and he got it. It was made with amazing detailed scenes, pre-scored dialogue, which is when dialogue is pre-recorded and animators match the animation to the recordings, fluid animation being animated at 12 to 24 frames per second, making it look extremely smooth, and even using CGI for some of their effects. It's safe to say, they spared no expense making the film. And with the deal made, Otomo made himself director of the film, and set off to write the screenplay with Japanese screenwriter and director Izo Hashimoto, and they went with the animation studio Tokyo Movie Shinsha, now known as TMS Entertainment, to animate the project. The film was completed and released in 1988, 2 years before the manga was completed. So when writing the screenplay, Otomo had to use elements he had planned for the end of the manga and the story he had written up to that point to create a cohesive story that was both entertaining and not too long. And he succeeded on that front if you ask me, but unfortunately, he also had to cut a lot of the story from the manga in the process. When the film was released, it was well received and garnered a lot of attention, and it eventually made $49 million worldwide and was the highest grossing movie in Japan that year. It was a big success, and the film started making its way across the world. An English dub was made by Electric Media Inc. and distributed by Streamline Pictures, giving it a limited release in theaters in December of 1989. Now, legend has it that Streamline Pictures got the rights to the movie because George Lucas and Steven Spielberg turned it down because they thought the movie was unmarketable in the US. I don't know if that's true, but man, if it is, that was a mistake. For having a small, limited release in the US, Akira did pretty well, making over $500,000 in its short run. That was a pretty big success for a company like Streamline. So in 1991, they released the film on VHS. The UK also saw a release on VHS in 1991 by Island World Communications that did so well that it led to the creation of Manga Entertainment. At first, Akira wasn't a big smash hit since it only had a limited release, but it started gaining a cult following really fast. People would fill midnight screenings to see this violently beautiful movie from Japan, and when the VHS copy of the movie came out, its cult following exploded as the movie spread from all over colleges and slowly into the mainstream. You see, at the time, there weren't a lot of animated movies like Akira in the West. Akira was violent and mature, showing graphic scenes that audiences weren't used to seeing in animated movies. The norm at the time were family-friendly movies, mainly Disney and Don Bluth films. No American animation studio was making movies like Akira. This really made it stand out as a film, and got people interested in wanting to see more of Japanese animation like that. Akira wasn't the first Japanese animated movie or TV show to make it to the West. There were many more before it, but those movies and shows were heavily edited, cutting out violence and changing story elements to make it friendlier for Western audiences. Big examples of this can be seen in Voltron, which had a main character die in the original, but in the US version, had him leave for medical treatment.
You hurt bad, Sven?
Yeah,
It's very bad. Sorry, I can't help you from Voltron now.
There's a doctor on planet Ebb.
Get me there fast!
And in Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which, when it was released in 1985, was called Warriors of Wind. Having Akira released unedited really made it stand out. The movie story was something that also made it stand out to Western audiences, since most Western movies were about preventing big disasters or saving the day, but Akira takes place after a big disaster, with people trying to live in that world. This could be due to the post-World War II mentality where Japan was greatly affected by the dropping of the atomic bombs. It's safe to say that Akira was greatly loved by people who saw it, and it did great things for anime and all of animation in general. As Akira spread in the West, it got more and more people interested in Japanese animation. So, while before Akira, only a few heavily edited anime made it into the West, after it, much more anime was making it. A lot of it was still edited, but plenty of less and unedited anime was starting to make it through. This led to the anime boom in the 90s, which moved anime closer to the mainstream. Akira's importance to anime's popularity cannot be stressed enough. But it wasn't just important to anime, but all of animation. As stated before, most Western animation at the time were family friendly. Not to say that those movies were bad, but because they were family friendly, animation was seen for children because of that. Akira helped show the world that animation can be much more, and isn't something just made for children, but should be considered a medium that can be used to tell any kind of story, including ones with mature themes and visuals. The film not only had a big impact on animation, but it also influenced several other artists in different media. Several manga artists cite its influence, such as Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto. It also influenced several movie directors and the films they worked on, such as The Matrix and Chronicle, shows like Stranger Things, and it even influenced Kanye West and his music video for Stronger. The film has left a big impact on pop culture and entertainment, and to this day, it still makes it onto most important or influential animation lists. There haven't been any more anime adaptations of the manga, but since the early 2000s, there has been talks of studios wanting to make a live action film, which honestly I hope never happens. Without Akira, the world of animation might be a vastly different place. It's had a major impact on entertainment, and will continue to do so for a long time. Of course, we have to give credit to its creator, Otomo. Without him, it wouldn't exist. While animation continues to grow and change, Akira will always have an important place in the history of animation.